This podcast is published by Top Level Sports. For insightful analysis on the world of sports featuring news, predictions, opinions, and more, check out toplevelsports.net. 32 began the year, and only 8 remain. We've reached the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Welcome to the Top Level Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Connor Groel, joined once again by Michael Lyon.
Hey Connor, happy to be back.
Yep, and last week wasn't the best week for us. Giants and Lions falling out of the playoffs.
Right.
But that's okay. You know why?
Why?
Alabama lost.
They did. The whole nation was rooting for Clemson.
The whole nation was rooting for Clemson, and we all got what we wanted. And even better than that, now for the rest of the playoffs, we get to just have fun, watch the games, no pressure about the Giants or the Lions doing anything. And we get to watch the Patriots do unholy things to the Texans.
The Texans are historic underdogs this week. 16-point underdogs.
Yeah, all right. So we got another 4 games coming up this week, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. We're going to get right into it. The first game, it's actually going to be the Falcons hosting the Seahawks. And a rematch of the game in Week 6 where the Seahawks won 26-24. It was a really close one. There was some controversy at the end. Maybe a Richard Sherman pass interference call that was missed could have sent the Falcons in field goal range. Of course, no guarantee that they make the field goal. But now at home this time, the Falcons are 4.5-point favorites. You taking the favorites?
I am taking the favorites. Things don't look good for the Seahawks this time. And we know they're going to show up. But going against arguably the best offense in the NFL, they're going to have some trouble. Matt Ryan has looked incredible this year. Julio Jones, Taylor Gabriel showing up this year. So good receivers. They have a dual threat running game. Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman.
Each have huge play potential.
They've both had their moments this year. So really high-powered offense. The Seahawks defense is good, and we know they do good in the playoffs, and we know they're going to show up, but they look a little bit outmatched this week.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that one. Matt Ryan, I think he's going to become the MVP. We both agreed on that on the show last week. I think what it comes down to, really what it's come down to for the last few years for the Seahawks, is they're playing on the road.
Yeah.
We know the Seahawks are 2 different teams, one where they're playing in Seattle and one where they're playing anywhere else. It was the truth again this season. The Seahawks went 8-1 when playing at home, just 3-4-1 on the road. So obviously, whatever it is about the home field advantage, maybe the fans, things really don't go their way as much when they're playing away from home. And obviously the Falcons, again, with the greatest offense in the league, I think they're going to be able to put up a lot of points, even though Seattle is a great defense and they didn't really have too many troubles with handling the Lions last week.
Yeah.
But it's a different game, and I think the Falcons are out for revenge. The Falcons are a team that's disappointed in the playoffs. They've had first-round byes before, and they've disappointed, but this is a big year for the Falcons, and I think they're ready to prove that they're one of the big boys in this league.
Yeah, that 8-1 at home, that includes a dominating win against my Detroit Lions last week. But the Falcons took that time to rest. They rest their whole team, and they're going to come out ready to go. They've had a similar roster for the last few seasons, and they've never been able to put a deep run together, but it's really looking like they could be able to do that this year.
Yeah, I definitely think the Falcons are a team that has the potential to make the Super Bowl. Again, I think we said last week on the show that we both favored the Falcons to make the Super Bowl. It's going to be really close if they play the Cowboys or really whoever they play next week, the Cowboys or the Packers. It'll be a great game. And there's always the questions about, does a team lose their rhythm? Do they lose their momentum heading into the playoffs if they get the bye because the Falcons finished the year so hot? But at the end of the day, the Falcons are a team that scores lots of points. I'm going to say 31-20 Atlanta.
All right, I'll give credit to their offense. I'll go 34-21.
All right, pretty close there. The next game, the late game on Saturday, 8:15 Eastern Time. The number 1 Patriots host the number 4 seeded Texans out in the AFC. Again, they played before. Actually, all 4 of these matchups are rematches of games earlier in the season. Back in Week 3, the Patriots beat the Texans 26-0. They shut them out, and their quarterback was Jacoby Brissett. Safe to say, Tom Brady is better than Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, and they're going to put up more than 26 points.
I agree.
The Texans will be lucky to score. This is one of the most dominating playoff matchups we've ever seen. 16-point favorites, as we mentioned earlier.
I believe it's the fourth largest spread of all time and the largest spread in the 21st century.
I honestly don't think the Texans have a prayer when starting Brock Osweiler against Tom Brady.
So Brock Osweiler was better than we anticipated, I'd say, last week.
He was. Fair enough.
We weren't really anticipating too much, to be fair, and the Texans' defense, I'd say, carried that performance much more than the offense did. But the offense definitely did enough to put up some points and shut the Raiders out of the game. But yeah, it's a completely different team.
Right.
A lot of factors. You're playing the Patriots. You're on the road. They have Tom Brady this time. They're the number one scoring defense this year. I mean, that's something crazy.
Yeah. The most impressive thing about Brock Osweiler's play last week was that he didn't turn it over.
Yeah.
And that was all he had to do to beat the Raiders. Against the Patriots, it's a completely different story. The Patriots have one of the best offenses in the league, and you're going to have to put up a lot of points to beat Tom Brady because they're going to show up.
Right, and the Texans, aren't really capable of putting up a ton of points. They put up more than 20, 24 points, only a few times this whole season. And they're definitely going to need more than that. Again, it's a bad offense against the league's best defense, and then one of the league's best offenses playing at home. So the Patriots feel pretty much unstoppable in this matchup. There is the theory, people are saying, the Texans, the spread is so big that, maybe it lit a fire under them, or maybe, we're going to see a different side of the Texans facing such incredible odds this week, but it's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah, the Patriots are a very good team, especially in the postseason when it comes to putting together Super Bowl runs. I don't think being a 16-point favorite is going to slow them down in that regard.
No, what would you say the score would be for this game?
Let's go super blowout, 37-10.
That pretty much defines super blowout. The thing is, I kind of want to make it closer than that, but at the same time, I think about the matchup and I say, I don't know.
How could it be closer than that?
But I will. I still think they're going to cover the 16. I'm going to say 31-13.
Okay.
That'll be my score for that game. Moving on to Sunday. Sunday, I think, are the two more interesting matchups of the week. Probably the best game of the whole 4 games is going to be the Cowboys playing the Packers in the late game on Sunday. But for me, the closest game to call is going to be Chiefs-Steelers. Chiefs, the number 2 seed against the 3 seed Steelers. Chiefs are the hosts. But the Steelers won 43-14 when they played earlier on in the season. The Chiefs have the bye week going for them, but the Steelers have an impressive win over the Dolphins to get them to this point. Who you got?
I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one. It's definitely the hardest game to call, though. The Chiefs are just a 2-point favorite going into the game. Pittsburgh did dominate earlier in the year, but when you're talking about something that was, 14, 15 weeks ago now,
Yeah,
I don't think...
3 months.
I don't think it holds too much weight. A lot has happened since then. The Chiefs have put together a lot of good wins. Their team has gelled well together. Tyreek Hill has kind of emerged since then.
No kidding.
He's one of the most explosive players in the league, one of the fastest players in the league. And so give the Chiefs offense credit there. The Steelers offense is good. It was good last week. But Big Ben having some trouble with his ankle, having some trouble with his leg. So there's a question there. And even if he's able to play, of course he's going to say he's near 100%. And he's going to play.
He's going to play.
But maybe that could affect his play, could limit his mobility a little bit. That's something to watch, something to worry about at least a little bit. And against the Chiefs defense that's performed well all year, I think you got to give it to the Chiefs.
I don't think we have to give it to the Chiefs.
Okay.
I'm going to pick the Steelers in this one. Big Ben, the mobility might be a bit of a question, but I don't think Big Ben will need his mobility. They have someone with plenty of mobility, and his name is Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell missed the first 3 weeks of the season, and then he exploded in the first game he played all year in that game against the Chiefs. I think the Steelers have only gotten better since then. Obviously a great offense. Antonio Brown, dude basically made 2 long touchdowns by himself against the Dolphins, and that would have been enough to win the game just then. Got to give the Chiefs a ton of credit for the year they've had this season. Originally, people think of the Chiefs as more just like of a defensive-minded team. Alex Smith plays the game manager role or whatever you want to call it. And, they dink and dunk down the field and, they'll put together a couple of scoring drives and that's enough to win the game. But this year, especially interesting because they haven't had Jamal Charles for the majority of the season. We've seen a new level of explosivity out of the Chiefs, especially from Tyreek Hill. The running game's still been solid. Travis Kelce's been a beast again, and we see their ability to score in a lot of different ways, which is new for the Chiefs. So for that reason, I think it's going to be an interesting game, and especially because the Chiefs are at home. The Steelers have been hotter down the stretch. Again, it's really a toss-up, right? That's why it's only the Chiefs are only 2-point favorites. But I'm going to go with the Steelers on this one. Really close. 27-23, I'll go on the score.
All right. I just think the Chiefs are such a well-coached team, and they have proven that they can score in many different ways. Dontari Poe at quarterback, for example.
This is true.
One of the more fun plays we've seen all season. I think the key to the game is that the Chiefs defense can put the Steelers offense in check. I think they control the rhythm of the game, and I think that's important because a lot of what you see from the Steelers offense, where a lot of their points come from, are like explosive 55-yard touchdowns.
Yeah.
They give them momentum and give them a spark, and they work around that. But I don't think the Chiefs are going to allow plays like that in the game. I think they're going to control the tempo, control the pace of the game, and it'll help the Chiefs to win. It's going to be a close one, though, really tightly contested. I'll go 20-17. Kansas City.
And just a little something to add. I think the difference maker in this game, if the Chiefs are going to win it, is one of those big touchdowns. Because we've seen the Chiefs score the conventional drive touchdowns, passes and runs. We've seen them break deep runs with their running backs. We've seen them break deep runs with Tyreek Hill. We've seen kickoff returns. We've seen punt returns. We've seen fake punts go for touchdowns. Andy Reid, loves to open up the bag of tricks. So if the Chiefs can pull off one of those big plays, get themselves some free points, we'll say, I think it'll have the opportunity to swing the game. But of course, I think it's going to be very close. I'll keep with my score prediction, 27-23. You're going about the same margin, a little lower scoring. It's going to be an interesting one to watch for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch.
And then the last game, it'll be the Cowboys against the Packers, the highest profile matchup. We got three players, in the MVP race in this game. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Aaron Rodgers. The Packers have been on fire. There was a point in the second quarter against the Giants where the Giants were up 6-0 and the Packers had -7 yards of total offense. And then all hell broke loose. Did not end well for the Giants.
Right. Packers are absolutely playing their best football we've seen, at least this season, if not Aaron Rodgers has played in his whole career. 7 straight wins now, including the dominating win against the Giants last week in the wild card matchup. And the Cowboys are starting rookies in a playoff game, and they're good rookies, but no playoff experience. They don't even have experience in close games for the most part. They had one against the Steelers, and they lost a couple to the Giants.
Might have been the best game of the season.
It was a good game, but outside of those 3 games, they don't really have a lot of experience facing adversity. They don't have experience in close games, no experience coming from behind. So for that reason, and based on Aaron Rodgers' playoff experience, which there's a lot of, the Packers' high-powered offense coming into this game, I'm going to pick the Packers in this one in an upset.
Yeah, so that's your upset pick of the week. You're going with the Packers. My upset pick of the week was the Steelers over the Chiefs, which of course means I'm going to go against you again, and I'm going to take the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots been made of the whole rookies in the playoffs deal. Are they going to fall victim to the pressure? Are they going to have a poor performance? I'm not buying it, to be honest. 13-3, could have been 14-2, if they played the starters and won the game against the Eagles, which I would have loved, because I would have loved to say the Giants were the only team that beat the Cowboys. But you've seen all season long, the Cowboys have never been rattled by the pressure, right? Straight from week 1, you could say the same thing. Could Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, struggle earlier on in the season because they're not, ready to play at the NFL level? They kind of did. They lost to the Giants. I'm going to keep mentioning that. I'm going to keep mentioning the Giants' wins for a while over the Cowboys, just to make myself feel a little better. But, minus that game, basically for the whole rest of the season, they were incredible. We said Ezekiel Elliott led the league in rushing over 300 yards. Dak Prescott turned the ball over, maybe 4 times all year. Just really killing it. The offensive line. Enough's really been said about the entire Cowboys offense and how great it is. Cowboys defense is not talked about as much, but they're still pretty darn good team back there. Cowboys playing at home. I think the Cowboys are going to edge this one out in one of the greatest games of the season. I think it's going to be incredibly fun to watch. The stakes are enormous. Trip to the conference championships on the line. Two of America's favorite teams, America's team, the Cowboys, and the Packers. We know there's a lot of Packers fans out there. So in this one, it's going to be very close. Cowboys are going to be my team to win it all. I'm thinking 24-20.
I think it's going to be higher scoring than that. I'm going to go 38-31 Green Bay.
Shootout.
A little bit of a shootout. You have two high-powered offenses going against each other. Cowboys' defense is good. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers with a lot of weapons around him. But
Jordy Nelson's not going to play. He might come back later in the season, but he's out for this one. I think an important thing to note is really going to be pace of play. The Packers are a team that can play really fast, put up a lot of points in a hurry. Cowboys are a team that loves these long drives, control the clock, milk it with Ezekiel Elliott, waste 6, 7, 8 minutes. So there's really going to be a clash at tempos, and I feel like the Cowboys might just drain the clock out to make it maybe a little less high scoring. But I'm going to go 24-20 for the Cowboys.
Right, yeah. So Jordy Nelson out. Let's look at last week against the wild card though. I don't want to say they don't need him because obviously he and Rodgers have a really good connection and that's a big benefit to their team. But they have a lot of weapons behind him as well, and I think that's important to know. Looking at last week, most of their points came after Jordy Nelson got out. So I give their offense credit. I'm gonna ride their win streak and say they're gonna win this game.
Well, I don't know about that. Wide receiver Geronimo Allison just got busted for marijuana.
True.
Of course, Geronimo Allison, despite being one of my favorite names in the league, not really one of the Packers' main weapons. Randall Cobb with 3 touchdowns in the game against the Giants, which really surprised me because apparently he was the first person to ever score 3 touchdowns in a game at Lambeau.
All right. He's proven what he can do in recent years. Hasn't been as big of a part of the offense this year, but Randall Cobb definitely a proven player. He's proven he's capable of filling in a sense for Jordy Nelson. They still have Devontae Adams, of course, and Ty Montgomery, who's proven to be a pretty solid running back.
Yeah.
Running back / receiver. He had a couple of good catches last week. So I think their offense is going to win the game for him.
I think it'll be tough. I think the run D is going to be the real problem. I think it's going to be, can Ezekiel Elliott really bust out and have a huge game? The pass D, a lot's been said about the fact that the Packers have been like a bottom 5 pass D this season. But when it really matters, I feel like the Packers defense has been able to step up, and you saw that definitely last week as well. It's going to be an interesting game for sure. You're going Packers, I'm going Cowboys. So just to recap, the 2 games on Saturday, we both picked it the same way. We got the favorites. We got the Falcons at home against the Seahawks. We got the Patriots at home against the Texans. That one should be over by halftime. And then on Sunday, we're going different both times. You're taking the Chiefs to beat the Steelers, and I'll go with the underdogs. I'm taking the number 1 seed Cowboys. They're number 1 for a reason, to beat the Packers. And that'll be your upset of the week.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Last week I went 4-0. You believed in the Raiders, went 3-1.
Texans played better than expected.
But this is a chance for you to get some revenge.
Yeah.
Could be up on the playoff tally by the end of the week. Thanks everyone for listening to the Top Level Sports Podcast this week. If you've listened to this entire show, I want you to post in the comments, made it. I want to see who's made it the whole way. Again, remember to go to toplevelsports.net for all my analysis. It's been fun having you on the show again, Michael.
Thank you, Connor.
And see you guys next week.